was solved?
The world. Watch this.
Can I get some water? I really did need a glass of water. This is not a stunt.
Usually when something isn't a stunt, you have to say
It's
that.
100% a stunt. When was the last time a president stopped a speech to ask, can I get a glass of water? What? They would never do that. They would have water ready for him. There's water on stage.
What's this next story? Why people think Barack Obama and Michelle Obama are getting divorced. Okay. Let's see what we got here. So rumors of potential divorce before Barack and Michelle emerged after Michelle skipped two high-profile events, which is traditionally attended by former presidents and their spouses, and their funeral of former President Jimmy Carter. Michelle's office gave no reasons for her absence, prompting widespread speculation about marital status issues. Social media and tabloids questioned the couple's relationship, with many noting the unusual nature of her missing such significant events. Despite the rumors, there have been no concrete evidence of...
Joe Rogan and Patrick Bet-David just took a political sledgehammer to Barack Obama's carefully polished legacy. No teleprompters, no fluff. Just raw, unfiltered takedowns of the myth, the media worship, and the mountain of contradictions behind the former president's image. From drone diplomacy to Wall Street speeches, they expose the smoke and mirrors like never before. If you thought Obama was untouchable, think again. This isn't just a roast. It's a full-blown reckoning that leaves no illusion standing.
Can I get a glass of water? I'm serious. I'm thirsty. Can I get a glass of water? This is not a prank. You never seen it?
No.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
Oh,
it's amazing.
no.
He gets a glass of Flint tap water, and I swear to God, he drinks it like this, like this.
It's so serious that Jimmy Kimmel asked Jennifer Aniston on the show, is there something going on with you and Barack? I've never seen this. I just ended to Rob. Rob, is this really him asking?
Joe Rogan didn't ease into the roast. He charged in like a gorilla with a podcast mic in one hand and a protein shake in the other, ready to tear through every myth, illusion, and legacy that had been built around Barack Obama, like it was some sort of presidential shrine wrapped in hope and recycled speeches. He leaned in, voice gruff, tone casual, but you could tell he was about to go full throttle.
$70 million. Pre-presidency, 1.7. So expensive being at the White House. It was so expensive that our net worth went from 1.3 million to 12.2 million 8 years later. What an expensive lifestyle. And then you go from 12.2 million to $70 million. What do you think the average person that listens to this, do you think they connect to that, Michelle? I'm just curious. You're a very good communicator.
He started by asking the obvious, the kind of question that everyone thinks but no one wants to say out loud. Why do people treat Obama like a Jedi master of politics when his actual record was more style than substance? Joe laughed as he painted the picture of a man who could deliver a speech with the grace of a Broadway actor, but somehow couldn't manage to close a deal without leaving a trail of chaos, confusion, or a few thousand drone strikes.
Give me some volume and go full screen.
What you know now, do you wish you had a third term? You know what, if I could make an arrangement where I had a stand-in, a front man or front woman, and they had an earpiece in, and I was just in my basement in my sweats looking through the stuff, and then I could sort of deliver the lines, but somebody else was doing all the talking and ceremony, I'd be fine with that.
We know he wasn't really running the country.
Yeah.
We used to think he was actually running the country, and now they're like, no, he didn't even see those executive orders. That was all auto.
Rogan mocked the way people still swoon over Obama's cadence, like his vocal tone alone could pay off the national debt. He joked that the media treated every sentence he uttered like it was laced with divine truth. Even if the guy had just said the equivalent of political gibberish with fancy grammar, Joe pointed out that if Obama ever said something like, "We need to innovate the innovation with innovative innovations," the press would spin it as genius, while the rest of the country sat there wondering if they missed a step.
Proposition, and you're running for 2 years and not earning an income. So all of that was in my mind. How would we manage this? So my fears were what came from the fact that I thought he could win. You know, because if maybe way in the back of my mind, I was hoping that maybe he wouldn't, you know, that this would be the last thing he would do. But I knew he had it in him to make this happen.
So, you know, what are you thinking when you're giving this message? Like, what do you...
Then Joe tackled the halo effect. You know, the way Obama somehow remained untouchable no matter how many questionable decisions floated behind his smug grin. Rogan dug in, highlighting the ridiculous contradictions, like how Obama would preach peace in poetic terms on Monday, then casually approve drone strikes on Tuesday. He called it the ultimate political yoga, bending reality while staying just flexible enough to dodge accountability.
I think the best people age the hardest. I think Obama was probably like a very idealistic young man
Oh, Lord, what's going on now? Who's hollering? I can't even see it.
who really wanted to change the world. And that dude aged more than anybody.
I mean, I'm getting old, so I can't hear that well. I can't see.
My favorite part was when Kamala Harris shows up, looks over and sees that Obama and Trump are talking to each other, and she goes like,
Yeah.
yeah, watch this.
Oh, man.
Look at her
Emma.
face. Look how angry she is, dude. Look how angry she is. It's
He also went after branding. Joe ranted about how Obama's presidency was less a leadership era and more of a marketing campaign on steroids. Everything, from the iconic posters to the manicured media coverage, screamed stage perfection. He joked that Obama was the first president who came with a logo and a color scheme, like he was launching a new iPhone instead of leading a nation. Even his walk, Joe said, looked like it had been focus grouped. Then came the policy jokes. Rogan roasted the Affordable Care Act rollout like it was the worst tech demo since Windows Vista. He painted the scene of a president who sold a healthcare revolution, but ended up delivering a website that crashed harder than a Joe Biden speech on quantum mechanics. According to Joe, Obama might have had the right script, but the execution felt like a sitcom with no laugh track and plenty of paperwork. And don't even get Joe started on the surveillance state. He blasted the idea that the guy who won a Nobel Peace Prize before even unpacking his socks in the White House expanded domestic spying like it was a Kickstarter project. Rogan rolled his eyes at the irony of Obama being the so-called transparency president while running one of the most secretive administrations in recent memory. He said if Obama were a magician, he'd pull a disappearing act every time someone asked for accountability.
Let's do data. Rob, can you type in Obama's net worth in 2007? What was Obama in 2007? 1.2 million, 1.3 million. Okay. So their net worth is, let's write this down. This is pre-White House. Their collective net worth was 1.3 million. Can you go to where their net worth was in 2016 when they're done being presidents? Okay. 2016. So their net worth, as expensive as it was, they went from being 1.3 million to 12.2 million.
Then there was the economy. Joe pointed out how Obama's cheerleaders loved to brag about recovery while ignoring the mountains of debt, the stagnant wages, and the fact that Main Street looked like it had gone 12 rounds with Mike Tyson, while Wall Street popped champagne. He laughed at the fairy tale that Obama was some kind of working-class savior, when in reality most of his economic decisions helped the very banks he claimed to stand against. But the best part came when Joe addressed Obama's post-presidency glow-up, the Netflix deals, the celebrity lifestyle, the never-ending speeches about unity from a guy who spent 8 years dividing people with backhanded eloquence. Rogan said, if hypocrisy were an Olympic sport, Obama would be wearing gold while giving a TED Talk about humility. And then, just as the smoke was settling, Patrick Bet-David entered the arena. And if Rogan was a flamethrower, Patrick was a wrecking ball, with spreadsheets, timelines, and a hunger for truth that made pundits squirm. Patrick didn't waste time with soft jabs. He went straight to the legacy. He questioned why Obama was still celebrated like a saint when his administration was riddled with scandals that were conveniently ignored or dressed up in technical jargon.
because Obama said he was a jackass.
The young lady seems like a perfectly nice person. She's getting her award. What's he doing up there? He's a jack.
It's like, oh, really? Well, you.
It was about the Taylor Swift thing.
Now, all this stuff.
That guy's a jack. It wasn't even that harsh of an incident. And he said it privately, and I think somebody heard it. I don't think he said it to be public.
I'm assuming all this stuff. Where's the pool? Come on, guys.
He brought up the fast and furious operation and the IRS targeting scandal with the calm intensity of a prosecutor presenting evidence, not emotion. He asked why Obama always escaped accountability when his own departments ran like episodes of a very unfunny comedy show. Then he dove into the myth of a unifier. Patrick exposed how the promise of hope and change dissolved into 8 years of increased racial tension, political tribalism, and a press so devoted to protecting the golden boy that they practically set up a shrine in every newsroom. He mocked the idea that Obama was a great communicator, saying a real leader doesn't just communicate, they connect, they solve, and they take hits. Obama, he argued, only did the first one. The rest were outsourced to blame shifting. Patrick took a jab at the media echo chamber that followed Obama like a cult. He laughed at how every time Obama made a mistake, the narrative shifted from he blew it to it was too complex for the American people to understand. Patrick said you don't need an Ivy League degree to see through a smooth-talking elitist who built a career on acting like he was too enlightened to be wrong.
Democratic president.
Right.
Great
so
point.
you don't go to that and you don't even comment. First of all, if I'm the Carter family, I feel disrespected. Now, maybe she would have called them and said, look, I don't want to comment on this, but I'm calling you out of respect just to tell you I'm not going to be there for my own reasons. Please understand I can't. I'm so sorry. Da-da-da-da-da. Great. Maybe she made that phone call to the Carter family. Great.
Then he pulled apart Obama's foreign policy with the precision of a surgeon. He described the rise of ISIS as a mess created by indecisiveness, ego, and speeches that sounded powerful but did nothing. He said Libya turned into a real-life horror movie on Obama's watch, and Syria became a humanitarian dumpster fire. At the same time, Obama posed for magazine covers and delivered dramatic pauses about red lines that meant absolutely nothing. And Patrick didn't let up on the economic front either. He reminded people that under Obama, the national debt doubled, something that would have triggered media panic under any other president. But with Obama, it was spun as a strategic investment in the future. Patrick asked what future exactly looked brighter with $16 trillion of IOUs stapled to its forehead. Then came the cultural fallout. Patrick said Obama left the country more divided, more suspicious, and more bitter than it had been in decades. He pointed out how Obama's administration routinely used identity politics to dodge real issues, how they turned every criticism into an attack on race, and how the media happily played along. At the same time, dissenters were painted as dangerous instead of simply disagreeing.
Do you remember when they gave that speech, when he gave a speech on television? This. And then they it kind of just went away.
It was one of the most beautiful moments in modern American history. People really actually stood up and stopped a war from happening.
Today, I authorize the Armed Forces of the United States to begin a limited military action in Libya in support of an international effort to protect.
He talked about how dangerous it is when charisma substitutes for competence, when being likable is treated like a policy, when having a great story becomes more important than results. Patrick said Obama was the ultimate example of political influencer, big on words, short on execution, and insulated from consequences by a machine built on narratives. Patrick closed his rose with a brutal comparison. If politics were a business, Obama would be the slick CEO who dazzled the board with TED Talks while quietly driving the company into the ground. Everyone claps, but no one checks the balance sheet. And by the time they do, he's already moved on to his next gig, selling hope to a new audience, richer and more untouchable than ever. And just like that, Obama wasn't just roasted. He was deconstructed. First by Joe's unfiltered logic and brutal sarcasm, then by Patrick's cold-blooded analysis and high-octane truth bombs. What remained was not the poster on your dorm wall or the polished memoir version of Barack Obama. It was a reality. The contradictions, the spin, the carefully managed brand that was never quite matched by performance.
Michelle Obama is slammed for whining about costs in the White House, okay? I don't know if you guys have seen this or not. This is her speaking with, is this the diaries of a CEO, right? So, Rob, if you can play this clip, this is her talking about how expensive it was to live in the White House. Go for it.
It's expensive to live in the White House.
Yeah.
As many people don't know. Sure. I mean, much is not covered. You're paying for every food, every bit of food that you eat. You know, you're not paying for housing and the staff in it, but everything, even travel. If you're not traveling with the president, if your kids are coming on a Bright Star, which is the First Lady's plane, we had to pay for their travel to be on the.
And yet, the roast wasn't over, because for men like Rogan and David, this wasn't just about Obama. It was about the culture that crowned him a king and refused to question the crown. The gatekeepers who turned critique into taboo. The system that mistook smooth words for actual solutions. There were still more layers to peel back, more illusions to confront, and more names to name. Patrick wasn't finished. Not even close. He pivoted to Obama's golden boy status among elites. The Hollywood parties, the late-night shows, the glowing book deals that read more like self-aggrandizing bedtime stories than anything rooted in gritty reality. He mocked how Obama spent 8 years cultivating the image of man of the people, only to spend the next 8 living like royalty in Martha's Vineyard, rubbing shoulders with billionaires while preaching quality from a marble balcony. Patrick found it hilarious how the same man who once claimed to champion the poor now pocketed obscene amounts for 30-minute speeches to Wall Street firms, tech giants, and international corporations he used to criticize. He painted the image of Obama standing before rows of CEOs, collecting checks the size of small countries, and still somehow managing to present himself as the moral conscience of modern politics. The irony was so rich, it could have paid off a student loan.
Obama did it, and it's disgusting. It's a disgusting lie. Let's play it.
said that there were very fine people on both sides of a white supremacist rally.
You also had people that were very fine people on both sides. I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists. Okay?
That was another point. Obama's supposed love for the younger generation. Patrick rolled his eyes at how Obama branded himself as a youth whisperer, only to saddle them with unprecedented debt and leave a trail of empty slogans dressed up as policy. He roasted the way Obama's administration talked about fixing student loans while universities continued to jack up prices and government-backed debt ballooned into generational shackles. Joe jumped back in the ring too, hammering the absurdity of Obama's celebrity aura. He joked that the man was more concerned with his Spotify playlist than confronting the mess he helped create. He said if image were leadership, Obama would be Mount Rushmore, but substance? That was a different story. Joe said Americans got a lot of speeches, a lot of selfies, and a lot of cool moments, but not a whole lot of follow-through. They both agreed the tragedy wasn't just a gap between Obama's promise and his results. It was how many people still refused to see it. Not because they couldn't, but because they didn't want to. Admitting that the great illusionist was just a man in a well-cut suit men admitting they got played. And for a generation raised on his slogans, that truth was far too bitter to swallow.